right, everyone, we made it, and we saved a fantastic conversation for last. So we're here today with Kecia Steelman. She's the new CEO of one of America's most important beauty retailers. Kecia, thank you so much for making time for us today. We are so thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you so much, John, and BeautyMatters for inviting me to join you on this great event. And thank you to all the brands that are out there. I'm looking forward to hearing from many of you, and this is very exciting for me. So thank you for including me today.
Thank you so much. Well, Kecia, I figured we could start by getting to know you a little bit better. And so, you know, when chatting with the CEO, I'm always sort of fascinated by the career path they've taken to reach the top spot. You've had leadership roles at a who's who of American retail. So you've been at Target, Home Depot, Family Dollar, and of course for the last 10 years, you've also been at Ulta. What got you interested in retail from so early in your career?
Well, I would just say that I actually grew up in retail, and I'm one of the very few retail CEOs that I would say started at ground level up. I started as an hourly associate, and I took it as a job, and it became a career. So I would say retail kind of found me. And I just found that I fell in love with it because every day was different. It was always changing. I was always competitive in school, and retail is a competitive environment for sure. You can be a hero one day, and the next, man, you can have to start all over again. So, you know, my career journey, I think, does set me apart from a lot of retail CEOs that are out there because I truly appreciate the role that everyone plays in making our organization successful. And I have a lot of credibility with that conversation when I'm talking to the people working the front lines or the people working in our distribution centers or the people in our merchandising organization, because I've been in their shoes. And when you can really, you know, be able to relate and have authentic, real conversations, it makes a difference. And, you know, I think it creates an environment in where people feel comfortable, that they can be themselves. And it also, I do believe I'm living the American dream. I'm a big, you know, I grew up in a very small town in Iowa, and if you would have ever said back then when I was a little girl, I would be sitting here on the stage today with you, I would have never believed it. But you know, it's part of the American dream that you work hard, you're given opportunities, you surround yourself with great people, you never quit learning, and you too could be a CEO one day.
Yeah, hear, hear. I truly believe that. What compelled you to make the jump into beauty? You joined Ulta in 2014, and that was your first experience in beauty, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was always a beauty junkie when I was a young kid, and I don't think I wore my makeup very well, especially when I look back at the older pictures. I was like, oh, that was a big don't. A little heavy on some things. The only blessing was in Iowa, we didn't really pluck our eyebrows, so I didn't lose all my eyebrows. Thank goodness for that. But, you know, I always loved beauty, and I had a great career progression that was going. You mentioned some of the retailers that I was at, but I knew that it was time for me to find out what was next. And a recruiter called me and said, hey, what would you think about Ulta Beauty? And this was in 2014. And what's so shocking is that I didn't know what Ulta Beauty was. And I was a big beauty wearer. I mean, I was usually buying Chanel at the Neiman Marcus counters where I would get all my cosmetics. And when I went into the store, I was like, where has this store been my entire life? And this was, like I said, in the early days where, you know, you would talk about Ulta and people were like, Ultra, they didn't know what the name what it was called. I think we're beyond that now, which is great. But I was like, I gotta be a part of this because I felt like it was something really special. And they were gonna be in this huge growth mode. They had just under 600 stores when I started, and now we have over 1,450. So it was just gonna be an exciting journey, I knew. And I met with Mary Dillon, who was the CEO at the time. Yep. She's a great marketing person. That's what she really did, is bring the brand to life in the United States. And it's been an incredible journey, and it's almost 11 years that I've been there. But it's been truly so much fun. This is such a fun category. I've loved my job in the CEO, being able to spend a lot more time with the brands, because that's really where the magic happens. We're not just the Ulta Beauty brand, we represent a lot of brands in our store. And that's what makes the shopping experience so exciting and refreshing, is the innovation and the newness that we can bring to the beauty consumer. So this is a very fun category. It's by far the most fun job I've ever had.
It's so funny. I think people forget sometimes how fast Ulta became such an important part of our industry. but from 600 stores to 1,450 stores in not that long. It's crazy. So you've held a number of leadership positions while at Ulta, including Chief Store Operations Officer, President of International, and COO, and now of course CEO. How did all of those experiences shape your leadership style that you bring to the job today?
I would say, while those roles were all really important, the role that really transformed me into the leader that I am today was when I was at Home Depot. I was actually the Vice President General Manager for Expo Design Centers, and it was a subsidiary of the Home Depot organization. It was about $1 billion plus in revenue. I was in my early 30s. I still can't believe they gave me the job, to be honest. I just was fearless, and I'm like, I can do this job. That's when I really learned the value of surrounding yourself with great people that thought differently than yourself. And I knew that I didn't know all parts of the organization, but I needed to have an expert marketing person and a merchandiser and my loss prevention and my operations and you name it. I had to surround myself with people who knew the parts of the business better than I did. And I had to be comfortable with that. And I've carried that with me throughout my career. I love to hire people that are better than I am at things that I know are my opportunities, and I'm not intimidated by that. I think that's what's made me the better leader that I am today, is because I like to hire people that are better than me, because they actually they're pushing me to become better myself. There's that saying is, if you hire C and B players, that's as good as you're gonna really ever be. So I look really to hire A players because I think it makes myself and our team even stronger. And that's translated into all of my roles that I had at Ulta Beauty, and over the course of the 11 years, I think that's been part of my secret to success, is also not that, as being the leader, I don't think you have to be the one that's always at the front and center. If you lead through your team and you give them the platforms and you're giving them the spotlight, I always say, I try really hard to make my team the star. People want to work harder for you, especially when you're giving them opportunities. I'm really proud of the fact that over 70% of our leadership positions in Ulta Beauty are internal promotes. So we really focus on that. A couple other stats I want to just share really quick, because it's just abnormal. And I've been here now long enough that I got to remind myself of this. Our diversity numbers, so we're 91% female. We've created over 6,000 leadership positions for women in the United States. In the last 3 years, we've added over 20,000 jobs. And that's how you really can make a difference, I think, in the world and continue to push diversity forward.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you talked about, the American dream. I mean, that's making the American dream happen for so many people. It's such important work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, when I go out to stores, I remind our store managers, they're running multi-million-dollar businesses. That's pretty cool. And we've got 1,400 plus opportunities to run a multi-million-dollar business. And I've often had conversations, and they're many times the most successful person in their family, and I just love that. I love those stories, especially when I hear the stories of somebody that said, I started as a cashier and now I'm running a store. That's the best days at work, personally, for me.
I love it. You came up through the operations side of the business. Why do you think it was strategic for the next CEO of Ulta to come from that side of the business?
Yeah, well, I don't know that's necessarily that I came up through the operations side, because I've been in retail for over 30 years. So I've had a lot of different experiences. I just happened to come up through the operations side here at Ulta Beauty. And what I will say is that my leadership style and trait, I think, is what the company really needs right now. I'm a decisive leader. I'm strategic. I'm execution focused. I'm fast, but with intention. And in the world that we're in right now, I often say internally in our team, with our teams, spinning is my least favorite move. And if you spin and you don't move forward and make a decision, you're going to fall behind. So I think it's more my leadership style and approach. I'm also a people-first leader, which we talked about just a minute ago, that I like to lead through my teams and I like to build exceptional teams. What's gotten us here, so when I started, we were about $4 billion in revenue. Now we're just under $12 billion in revenue. And what's going to be the next chapter of growth for us is a different skill set than what we've had before. So it's my job and responsibility to make sure that I'm putting the best team forward to keep this company a success, because it's not just the 58,000 associates that are counting on us to have, a solid business going forward, but it's many of our brands. There's a huge responsibility to that. If something were to happen to Ulta Beauty, it would impact a lot of people. And I put that pressure on myself, that I'm working hard every single day for our brand partners, our associates in our stores, our shareholders, to make sure that we're making good decisions, not just for the short term, but for the long term of Ulta Beauty. There's a place for us here in the United States and even globally.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your leadership and vision for the future. So you've been on the job for about 4 months as CEO. You have certainly not wasted any time getting started. I'm just going to read a quote here from your Q4 earnings call a couple of weeks ago. The beauty landscape has fundamentally changed. Guest expectations continue to rise, and the pace of change is accelerating. The competitive environment in beauty has never been more intense. For the first time, we lost market share in the beauty category in 2024. I am aware of the challenges that we face. Some of them are external, while others we own. First off, I always applaud a CEO who's introspective and frank about changes in the market. And I also love when they come to the market with a plan, which is exactly what you did. So to counter some of the slowdown in the business and changing customer expectations, you unveiled a plan called Ulta Beauty Unleashed, and I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Ulta Beauty Unleashed is really a 3-part plan. The first one is we've got to drive our core businesses. And when I mean drive core businesses, it's you've got to have a high level of execution excellence. You've got to be focused on back to basics. And that's just retail 101. And there's 3 parts of our business that we're really leaning into. The first one is brand building. We have got to be the place where brands can build and continue to grow. That's what keeps our guests coming in and day out, and we're totally leaning in on that. The second is we have a really great digital platform right now, so focusing on our digital acceleration and investing in our app and on our online presence. And it's a 360 approach that we need to be talking to the consumer. And then the third is really around personalization. We have 44.6 million loyalty members in our platform. We've got to make sure that we're elevating the way in which we're talking to that consumer and we're engaging her with Ulta Beauty. That's really what I would call the drive the core pieces. Then the next layer is how we can drive margin accretive businesses. And there's really 4 parts to that. The first one is wellness. Beauty in the last 3 years has grown $20 billion, which is just a crazy number. But wellness is a $400 billion business that is actually outpacing the growth of beauty. So we are all in on leaning into this convergence of beauty and wellness. The second is marketplace, and I think this could impact a lot of people in this room, is that we have thousands and thousands of brands that are coming into, wanting to come into our company every year, and it's really hard for us to be able to process those and get them into our store or online. It's too much. But in this closed marketplace where we are highly curated, you're working still with a merchant, we're getting you a foot in the door, I think that's going to really help us build our brand portfolio. The third is our UB Media Network. So it's a retail media network, which is a way that our brands can take their advertising dollars and connect it with our loyalty member base, and we can have really good targeted marketing towards them so we can help build their brands. And then the fourth is international growth. We've announced that we're launching in Mexico with a joint venture with Grupo Axo. We are looking at the Middle East. We're doing a franchise in the Middle East, and I could not be more excited about that. And there's more markets to come. Ulta Beauty, there's a place for us in the broader world and not just in the US. So we're taking Ulta Beauty abroad. And then the last piece is really realigning our foundation for future success. And it's 2 parts. It's the ways of working. It's the culture that we have in our organization. We've got to continue to protect that. And we have to continue to take costs out of our model. And I know that you're not a bunch of investors. In fact, I just spent the full day at JP Morgan here. This group is a lot more smiley, I will say. So thank you for that. And I can tell you guys are going to have a lot more fun, especially at the happy hour. And don't tell them that. I said that. But what I will say is that we're going to look at taking 200 to 250 million cost out and make our business a little bit more efficient. And that's really what our shareholders want and expect from us. So it's really those three parts of our plan that's really clear. It's easy for our teams to understand. It's easy for us to articulate. And when you have everyone rowing in the same motion, you start to see momentum happening. And I've already started to see that in the 4 months that I've been in position.
Yeah, well, it's a really clear and concise plan. It's also the outline for the rest of our conversation, so I have a few follow-ups there. But you know, in such an intensely competitive environment, why do you think the Ulta guest continues to choose Ulta? And you know, when they have so many different beauty experiences available to them, and how does the plan help you to stay ahead on the customer side?
Well, no one really does what we do, and what I mean by that is, you know, that beauty is what we do, and we cover everything from mass to luxury and everything in between. We have services in the majority of our stores, so there's this services activation. We work really hard on being an approachable store that you can shop in. Our associates, I believe in, like, some people like a lot of makeup, some people just want to focus on skin. We have a very diverse workforce in our stores. I love that. I think I want to continue to protect that. That's what makes us really special, is I want people to see a version of themselves in our store locations. You know, that's what continues to set us apart, along with our omnichannel experiences. We're continuing to lean in to our omnichannel experiences. And, you know, this business, we do generate a lot of cash. So the ability for us to continue to reinvest into our business and some of the things that I just talked about, I think keeps us really relevant and top of mind for that consumer. So I think that's what really separates Ulta Beauty, is a lot of people are getting into beauty because, you know, it's a high growth, there's good margin rates, but this is what we do, and this is what we've done for a long time. We are really all things beauty, all in one place.
Yeah, for sure. You know, of course, the key to success for any retailer in beauty is partnerships with the best and most coveted brands. We have some of those brands here in this room today. Some of them are already your partners. Some of them want to be your partners. What do you see as some of the key differentiators at Ulta for brands looking to scale their businesses with you? And how do you see those relationships evolving over the next few years?
Yeah, well, I would just say that one of the things that I've seen, even in my time here at Ulta Beauty, is that it used to be like one size fits all on how you would have to come into the company.
Yep.
You'd have to come into all the stores. You know, our e-com business wasn't as maybe strong in the early days. That's not the case anymore. We are being a lot more, I would say, curated on helping the brands come into our company in a way that works for them, because quite frankly, you could essentially bankrupt a brand if you grow them too quickly, and that's not what we want to do. We want to be a really good strategic partner with our brands, and that might mean a smaller store base to start. It might be online only. In the future, we're going to have marketplace that could be potentially an option, but we want to have bespoke ways that we can bring our brands to life, and then we want to lean in with brand building and help you figure out what's the best way to build your brand at Ulta Beauty. We are a big believer, and I'm a big believer as the leader, that we don't treat our brands as vendors. We treat them as partners. It's not good if one wins and one loses. It's got to be a win-win relationship for both parties, because nothing's worse and disruptive than bringing a brand in and then having to exit them really quickly. We want to bring brands in and grow them in the way that is best for that brand, and to create long-term value for the brand founder also. I mean, this is, for those of you that are founders out there, you know, I just want to give you it is hard. I've heard of a lot of stories of blood, sweat, and tears, and long days and nights, and, you know, living paycheck to paycheck. I know what that's like on a different end, because I was making an hourly wage in a store, but I do have an appreciation of your creativity, your entrepreneurship, and I do want to make sure that we are really leaning in to help our brand founders be really successful, and not just in a short term, but long-term success. I think that's the best way to approach our relationships with our brands.
What are some of the characteristics of the brands that are most successful at Ulta?
Those that just really want to win, you know, that just have that hunger and the drive. Those that are thinking of not just a specific niche, but how you can be, a brand that you can resonate with a broader segmentation of the consumer base. I think it's a little tricky if you're only, focused in one sector. I think thinking bigger picture, those that are innovative and challenge themselves to continue to think differently as you're growing. There's that saying, what got you here isn't always going to be what gets you there. So how are you looking at what's made you successful and keeping an open mind? I've seen a lot of founders that are listening too many times to other influencers. I even find that in my job right now today. Everybody's got an opinion, right? Everyone has an opinion, but you know what works. And you got to stay true to yourself. And you've got to continue on that path and continue to move forward. I'd say that that's what I see, the brands that are just tenacious and are continuing to be really successful with us. And then, social media definitely plays a very important role, how you can get your brand and your brand not just from a store in a online capacity, but how do you leverage social media to maybe even create a viral moment that you can get more people into your brand. That's what I've been seeing that I see really works for brands as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that you guys are going to be leaning into wellness in 2025. How do you see that taking shape, and which other categories will be in focus for you and the merchandising team this year?
Yeah, so right now we have wellness in about 8 feet in our stores, and we're going to be expanding space in many stores. We're testing a lot of things. We've already got 20 new brands that we're going to be bringing into the company in 2025 that are already signed up. As I mentioned earlier, this is a huge growing category, and the convergence between wellness and beauty is just becoming more and more clear. Areas that we're leaning into is sleep. Sleep is really important. If you're really tired, it doesn't matter what you're putting on your face. It kind of shows. I'm trying to do as many eye masks as I can personally do, but sleep is really important. Movement and creating movement, so think yoga and stretching and ingestibles, intimate care. I had a couple red faces in the room when I was talking about, Ulta Beauty, I believe, is trusted for some of the most challenging and important times in your life because we are so approachable. So think from a person's first period all the way through menopause and perimenopause. If we can continue to help that consumer on their journey and they trust us, we are going to be their brand for life. Those are tough situations, and all of this is really accretive because if you're leaning into those categories, you're not buying lipstick and mascara still. So I think it's how we can continue to build our business as a whole at Ulta Beauty. And when we've gone out to the consumer base and asked them where they would think about purchasing these kind of categories, Ulta Beauty consistently came as the #1 location. And I think part of it is it's what we do. It's beauty is what we do. We've been viewed as the trusted authority there, and we're covering everything from mass to luxury. We're not just in a singular price point zone, and I do think that makes us a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, Ulta really has carved out that sort of very unique niche between sort of masstige and prestige. You guys have done a really fantastic job of that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, in addition to your appointment as CEO, the industry is also buzzing about 2 big initiatives that you mentioned earlier, the Ulta Beauty Marketplace and international expansion. So I was hoping we could spend a couple minutes just talking about that. So you guys partnered with Miracle to build out a new marketplace and are currently taking applications for brands who want to participate. How does the marketplace make Ulta more competitive?
Well, I think it just is going to be able to broaden our assortment. I think we're really focused on beauty and wellness first in the marketplace. I don't want a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense, and I've seen that in some other marketplaces that are out there. They're bringing everybody in, and that's why we have a closed marketplace. So, you can apply, you'll go through a process. We want to make sure that our guest experience is top-notch and that it's reflecting the Ulta Beauty brand because, when you're buying through our marketplace, you're essentially, buying through our brand. One of the things that we've leaned into, actually 2, is that points are really important to our guests. So the ability to earn points in our stores, it's a very simple program. You'll be able to earn points as you purchase through Marketplace, you just won't be able to redeem those points. You're going to have to redeem those points back in stores. So you can earn them, but you can't burn them, which is great because it's going to bounce the guests back into our Ulta Beauty locations. And then we want to make returns really easy, that is frictionless. So we're going to be able to offer the ability to return any Marketplace items back into store, and it will be a seamless return process, which I'm really looking forward to. Again, thousands and thousands of brands are coming to us every year, and we just can't bring thousands and thousands of brands in. But this is a way that we can actually create an opportunity for many brand founders to come into the ecosystem. We'll give you a shot. You'll be part of our Ulta Beauty team, and if you have an item that just takes off, it'll be easier for you to get back into the Ulta Beauty mothership.
And from a logistics standpoint, are brands going to be shipping product out themselves, or are they going to be shipping it to Ulta and then maybe there's like a Prime program or something?
So we're initially starting it as a 3P, but we have intentions to move to 1P relatively quickly after our initial launch.
Okay. And will it be an incubator of sorts for new brands and categories for Ulta?
Yeah, absolutely, but they have to be adjacent categories. It's got to make sense to the consumer. I don't want to be selling something that just doesn't make any sense, just to have it on our website. So it needs to be curated and make sense for what our beauty consumer is looking for.
For sure. So last year it was announced that Ulta had partnered with Axo to expand into Mexico. And in February it was announced that Ulta will enter the Middle Eastern market through a franchise agreement with Alshaya Group. First of all, why Mexico and the Middle East? Why did those markets make sense for you?
Well, I will say that our border stores are some of our very best stores in the United States, and we resonate really strongly with the Hispanic consumer in the U.S. It just makes a lot of sense for our first joint venture to be in Mexico. And it's amazing. I just met one of the brands that's going to be joining us in our stores in Mexico. And the plan is not just to have brand founders that are based in Mexico to stay in Mexico. I think there's going to be this beauty, and we're going to be able to find great brands and bring them north of the border and bring them into our regular Ulta Beauty stores. So I think that model works really well. It's a joint venture model with Grupo Axo. And then in the Middle East, we have a licensed agreement with Alshaya. Alshaya is a fantastic operator. And one thing I will also say about both these companies is I spend a lot of time with their leadership teams. Culture and the way that they lead is really important, especially if you're going to trust a company to lead your brand. And I feel great about both. They've got a great track record of bringing American brands to both of those regions. The Middle East is a fast-growing beauty destination, and we're continuing to look at the rest of the world. Where we're focused on is where beauty makes sense. A lot of our research, and this is also the great aspect of social media, is that when we were doing surveys, we were like, well, the people in the Middle East even know about Ulta Beauty. Oh yeah, they do, because of this thing called TikTok and Instagram, and it was great to hear. And the same thing was true for Mexico. So we feel very confident with these launches that we're going where the consumer wants us to go. One of the things that I talk often about in our company is we make decisions that keep the guest and our associates at the center of all of our decisions. And I'm a big believer, if you're focused on things that are doing both, you will be successful.
And on that note, how do you think the Ulta experience will be translated outside of the U.S.?
Yeah, I think you're going to feel like you're in an Ulta store. I've been looking at some of the prototypes, and we're opening some really nice flagship locations in Mexico. Some of the first launch stores are going to be more of a flagship feel, so a little jazzed up, which is great. If you think like Herald Square or 86th Street store, we have a new store that's going to go in Chelsea. We have a store in Michigan Avenue. So a little bit of an elevated look and feel on some of those stores. The same thing for the Middle East. That we're going to be opening some flagships first. We want to put our very best foot forward. But we're also going to have some stores that look like Ulta Beauty in the U.S. In all of those countries. So we want it to be the Ulta Beauty experience that works in that country. And we're really open. We want to do what's best for the guest.
Well, Kecia, if you have some time, I'm sure there are a few questions from the audience that they'd like to ask. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
All right. Does anyone have any questions for Kecia? We have a question up front here.
Hi, Kecia. I'm Tara Wilson. I'm the founder of the Tara Wilson Agency. We're in Dallas, Fort Worth, and we create experiences and activations for sports and beauty brands. So my question is around your upcoming Field Summit and Beauty World in particular. So I'm curious, what does success look like for the brand coming out of Beauty World, which is a consumer-facing experience, and especially given that you mentioned the Hispanic market being so important to your brand?
Yes, well, thank you so much for that question. Dallas is such a strong market for us. I love that market. Oh, awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. We're having our annual meeting, which is all of our field leaders coming in, key leaders at the corporate office, all of our brands come in San Antonio here in just 2 weeks. Time is coming fast. And one of the things that we do there is we create this brand expo for all of our associates. So it's like BeautyCon, if you can imagine. It is like, they go crazy. They get all these products. It gives them training and education. There's this engagement piece with the brand. And I'm a big believer, if the associates working in the store believe in your brand, that's the best marketing you could ever have, because they will help sell your product. We already have that set up, and the brand spends so much money on these activations and this engagement that we were like, why are we taking this down the next day? We should do some kind of like BeautyCon event for the consumer in this venue. And I'm really proud to say that we sold out relatively quickly of all of our tickets. We capped the tickets, and it's going to be an experience for consumers, influencers, and I think we're really focused on our social media presence, where we're going to try to get as much activations out there for the brands as possible. So the brands, like I said, they've invested a lot already in these setups. They're there. Why not really maximize that time while they're there and try something a little bit different? I couldn't be more excited. I'm going to be staying through Saturday. We're going to be doing it on Saturday. And, we're also going to be able to bring some press in, have some great interviews, have activations, and you're going to have the most beauty-loving guests that are going to be in this activation, which I'm just hoping that they just blast this out on social media and get everyone excited about the brands and also about Ulta Beauty.
Yeah, I love the concept. Certainly, I follow a lot of the brands in our audience, and I just love seeing the ideas that they come up with for these events. They're so incredible, and you're right, like they're spending all that time, all that effort putting together these great activations. Why not invite a consumer to come in and experience it as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Does anyone else have a question? Ooh, we have Gary up front.
Danessa Beauty. There's been a lot of conversation about all of the different marketplaces, TikTok, Amazon, Instagram. So I was curious on your position on your brands selling on TikTok, Amazon specifically, and also the conversation where the mindset is it brings people back into the store, and want to know your position on that.
Well, beauty has always been a heavily competitive category, and it's always been a competitive environment. One interesting fact is that 80% of Ulta Beauty sales still come from our stores. This is a category that has a lot of human connection and engagement, and newness and innovation is really what drives the business forward. 20 to 30% of our sales is based around newness and innovation. It's hard to try newness and innovation in a virtual world. You want to come in, touch and feel and play. So, TikTok, what my perspective there, and we actually, for our 21 Days of Beauty event, we had some marketing on TikTok, but we weren't selling on TikTok. What we did was we had the engagement on TikTok of like, hey, click the link, and then the link took you to our website. What I see our brands doing on TikTok is that a lot of it is discounted. It's expensive to also sell on TikTok. So I see brands using it as a way to engage, but for a brief period of time. I just don't know how you can make money having it discounted, paying a higher rate for a long period of time. We are leaning into what makes us unique and different. And when you mention other competitors that are out there, there's some things that we're going to be unlocking on our own platforms, like subscribe and save. So creating that frictionless shopping experience. Another interesting fact is that only 10 to 15% of shoppers are buying replenished products. And I'm not saying that replenishment online. I'm just saying they're buying the same thing again and again. And for those of us that are users in the audience, you'll know, like, I have my favorite mascara, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to try something else, or I've got this face wipe, but there's something that's new. And I think that's what keeps this category really, really interesting, and that human connection is going to be really important for us.
All right, well, we're at time. Kecia, I have to tell you, your team is so fantastic, and they've been such an important part of our community, and we're so happy to welcome you into the BeautyMatter community. I'm really looking forward to seeing how your vision takes shape. So hope we'll check in again.
Absolutely. Thank you
so
so much.
much.